All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to our first PDA Shop Talk Happy Hour. My name is Ritchie Daize, and I'll be your moderator this evening. Joining us as panelists, though, are Ken Burns. Ken, say hello.
Hello.
Paul Roba.
Howdy.
And Jim Miller.
Hello.
What a great group of guys. So in today's Shop Talk, we're going to be having a conversation about a few different industry topics. One of them is material warranties. Also is estimating jobs. And we're also going to tag on at the end a little bit about anti-microbial films. And we'll be inviting you, of course, to make comments in the chats, the little bit of a chat here on the right side of your screen. I'll be monitoring those questions, and I'll be trying to answer them as best I can. I'll try to join in some of the conversation as well. If you have a specific question, or sorry, a question for a specific panelist, definitely put that in your question, and I'll make sure that I bring that question up at the end of our discussion for that panelist. So without any further ado, let's try to do a bit of a deep dive into material warranties. And I got to just get started with, Paul, I know you've had a lot of background in this, and Jim and you rely on warranties, for your jobs, for moving forward with your work. So, anyone who would like to sort of take it up at the beginning, maybe we would ask either Jim or Ken to talk about, how do warranties affect you, and how do you take them to your customer?
Well, I can start this off. So what we do, me and Ken both are just installers only. So we rely on the manufacturer's warranties. For our work, what we do is we offer a 1 year on color change and then whatever the manufacturer offers on the material. So our workmanship is just all we warrant. And usually if you have a problem with an install, it's going to happen within the first few days, but more than likely within the first few months, and certainly within the first year. Usually if it's a bad install, you're going to start seeing problems pop up. And then, so that's why we have such a short warranty. We never go over that. And then also some of them are even shorter because our warranty never exceeds manufacturer's warranty. So sometimes like wall graphics and stuff like that, we get away from stuff because, walls are not warranted, because there's so many issues with paint and other things. And we try to put that in a disclaimer, and we'll do what we can to fix it, but that's where we stop. We don't exceed manufacturer's warranty. That's our big thing.
And chiming in with what Jim says when you typically will see a failure, it is typically early on, and even manufacturers recognize that if there is a product issue, it's going to typically show up in the first few months or the first year, and then you'll be able to see that, and then you can talk to the manufacturer about that. And as I look at it as a three-phase thing. There's the manufacturer's warranty, there's the warranty to the distributor, there's a warranty to a converter, and then there's a warranty to the installers. Then how do you go through that? And Ken, did you have anything you wanted to add to this at this point?
Yeah, just for Jim and I, we rely. There's just so many variables that are out of our control, right? So if you're an installer that doesn't produce or design, then you're at the mercy of whoever's giving you that product. And do they take care of their print equipment? Do they use the right inks, or do they use knockoff inks? Are they outgassing properly? Are they using the right laminate for the right materials? We don't know any of that. We have no control over that. So that's why, as installers, we really can't do much more than the manufacturer's warranty on the material itself.
But I think you bring up a lot of really good points there, Ken, that these are the factors that people need to be considering. You're producing the graphics.
Yes.
Are you using the inks that are warranted or that are at least OEM? If not, where do you stand? Good to know that. Are you using your equipment properly? Outgassing is one example of that. And when I think about warranties, of course, from the manufacturer's standpoint, but trying to step over the line and think more as a producer, I think it's important to understand what is covered, But I think that there's another side of that, which is understanding how to enact the warranty. So what are the steps? What information do you need to have to enact the warranty? Paul mentioned that there are 3 levels in general of warranty that are pretty common amongst the larger brands. And Paul, I'd love it if you would actually dive into that.
Jump in on that, because I know that we've had this discussion offline and prior to the call, so the attendees have not heard this part of it. Because, you know, what is the warranty at the end of the day? It's just the manufacturer standing behind their product, and then supporting your customer, supporting your peace of mind, and then knowing that the company that has the warranty stands behind their warranty. There's a lot of moving parts as far as that goes, and some companies are, you know, they perform differently in regards to their warranties. And when we look at a warranty, there's typically 3 levels. There's a product warranty, which just says, you know, the manufacturer makes their product and it does what it's supposed to do based on their specification when they ship it. And that's really all it is. So that's the basic warranty, and everybody has that. Then you go to a performance warranty, and that typically is for printed graphics. And that says, hey, manufacturer has worked with printer manufacturers and has said that their OEM inks and their printers set at the proper settings will provide graphics, will provide the durability when the manufacturer's instructions are followed, as well as the printer manufacturer's instructions are followed. You know, Arlon has like their print media total system or a life component system. 3M and Avery both have a product, a warranty called a performance warranty. And there's others out there like that. Then you go to the 3rd level, which is like the creme de la creme of warranties. It's the king of warranties. That's a full component warranty. And that has a lot more moving parts to it, has a lot more coverage. So it does everything that a product warranty does, everything that a performance warranty does. But it also gets into if there is an issue. Guys, taking a step back real quick, for product performance warranty, you really only have material coverage. So you don't have any coverage for ink, labor, anything else. So you can't claim that when you file a claim. But with a full component warranty, you can typically complain, or you can file a claim for material, for labor to make the graphics, labor to install graphics, labor to remove graphics, the ink, and all the components that go into that. And it can get really, really complicated. There's typically, there's a couple on the market. There's the integrated component system warranty, and there's the multiple match component system warranties. So those typically require that the sign converter or the graphics converter be registered with the company. So people will think that they all have this warranty because it's sort of put out there that, hey, our warranties are full coverage and people have access to them, and you do. However, you typically have to register as a manufacturer. You have to go through an audit process, and the audit process will look at, you know, as we talked about earlier, that the printer is using the right inks, the right laminates, following instructions, they outgas it properly, they store it properly. There's a lot of phases and steps that go through to get audited and certified as a registered warranty supplier. So that's kind of the 3 warranty types that we were talking about.
Right. And actually, if you want to enact any one of those, all depending on the level, then of course there are going to be, you know, different levels of data you're going to have to be able to produce. And I think it's important to understand what they are, depending on, first of all, understand which warranty you have. That's critical. But after that, it's important to understand what it takes to enact it, because warranties take time. But guess who doesn't give you time? Your customer doesn't give you time. So one other thing I wanted just to make clear, or thought I'd like to put, a little seed I'd like to put out there, is that when you look at the warranty, understand that it is really just risk mitigation. That's all it is, right? It's take away the risk. So you have to understand that if there was a problem and it's being investigated, you are first and foremost going to need to solve it. And you're going to have to be prepared to do that. And then the warranty comes after that, because the customer can't be waiting 3 months, you know, to have that replaced, because sometimes it take time to enact a warranty, depending on the size of or the complexity of the problem.
Right. And I think Jim and Ken can probably address how they would look at it and address it,
right?
Because it can be a cumbersome process with, you have to deal with your manufacturer of the graphics, you have to deal with the dealer or distributor, and then you have to deal with the ultimate manufacturer of the films. So that process takes time. So how do you guys deal with shortening that or making your customers happier? Is there programs or plans that you do? I mean, I can get into what a manufacturer wants, but I think what you guys do to mitigate the length of time to make it shorter in the beginning for your customer.
Well, we recently had a warranty claim, and you know, we have had several, and I think I look at it like, is it a wall graphic that is falling off the wall? Yeah, we got to get in there and do something to make it stay up, no matter what, or remove it, or whatever we have to do. And us just being an installer only, a lot of times we'll go ahead and go that extra mile and have it reprinted, reinstalled. And but I look at it like, if it's something that could just sit there, like if it's some bubbles or cracking on a car or something, if it's something they can live with till we get it resolved, we just wait. We wait till we get it resolved and handle it that way. But if it's going to hold up their business or cost them money or cost them, downtime on anything, we try to accommodate whatever we have to do. Take it off.
When you like about wall graphics and that, if it's or even a vehicle graphic, if it's something you feel that you can address easily, do you contact the manufacturer directly and talk to their tech team?
Oh yeah, a lot of times we talk to many times we've had problems, and I usually just start with my rep that's close by, and then if it's something that he can't handle, if I know he can't handle it, then we need to go to the tech team. We go that far, but a lot of times I can pretty much tell what the problem is, but sometimes I can't. Sometimes we just don't know. We don't know if they use the right laminate, like Ken said earlier. I mean, that's one of the issues we had in a recent failure, and it was a pretty massive failure. They used the wrong laminate, and it started coming off. It was window graphics. They were coming off inside, shrinking and causing problems because they used a different type laminate over the top of the vinyl. So in that case, we went back and trimmed up what we had to, took off some, and we're still waiting on. That's one of the ones we have in process right now.
So being the installers, do you guys go to does the end customer contact you first, or do they contact you're basically a subcontractor to the graphics provider? So who do they contact, and then how does that process typically go?
Well, for us, it depends on. We do a lot of direct stuff like color changes and stuff like that. The customer comes to us. Big retail stuff, they go to their customer, the printing customer, the advertisement agency or whatever, and then it comes back to us through them, the way we got the job. So it comes through, whoever the person is that got the job.
So just because of my experiences, when it goes through all, like when they contact, let's say it's Macy's and they contact their regional person who contacts their designers who contacts, it kind of takes a long time, doesn't it, to finally get around to any kind of being addressed?
Sometimes it's pretty quick. I mean, when you have a good relationship with your, like, I'm sure Ken's the same way. We have a lot of customers that it's going to be a quick process. They get a call and they call us. So it's, usually a 10-minute process. We know what's going on. We know there's failure, and we're there to handle it if we can.
So I know from a manufacturer standpoint, there's a lot of details that we would ask for. Now, you guys typically don't have access to some of those details. Like you wouldn't have access to like the lot number or what products were specifically used or any of that. You would know I applied it on this date and the temperature was this, humidity was that, this is how I cleaned. I'm a PDAA, I'm a USAG, I'm a master certified. You have those kind of credentials, and that you follow the instructions of what you thought you were to apply, correct?
Correct. For us, we don't do color changes, so we don't deal with any end clients. For us, we are being hired by the producers to service their customers. So any warranty issues go from their end clients to the producers. Very rarely do we have an install issue, but when we do, we fix it immediately. And even if it's not our fault, if it's a production error and it's clear that it's a production area, we'll fix it anyway, because it's worth keeping the relationship. As there's so many installers out there that it's worth being the guy that'll go and get it done, even though it's not your fault. We can talk.
I know I saw Pete had made a comment. Hey, John Carthy.
Hey, Mr. John.
Pete had made a comment about fix it as quickly as possible, and I think that's what one strives to do. But sometimes it doesn't happen because when you get into the some of the paperwork at the manufacturer level, it's hard to get that done quickly.
Right, and again, we don't deal with the manufacturers. Like, we don't purchase vinyl at all. So it's that we're just not part of that process.
And it's funny because, you know, I look at, like I said, I look at there's the converter, the graphics printers and converters, and then there's these multiple levels. So I probably have a broader look at how I'm approaching this than we normally would. So I'm looking at, you know, the printer is going to have to track down the product name, lot number, storage conditions, how it was processed, the printing details, anything else that they have, and then also supply the information that you guys have. So I'm sure that there's some people on the call, some of the attendees that may be both installers as well as graphic converters and suppliers. So just trying to create everything.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to say, you know, Paul, is actually, you know, when you talk about documentation, I just pulled up some generic ones from 3M because they're the easiest to find. Pre-installation forms. You know, you want these, you need these. You want to document the type of material you're using, the elements that you're installing in, the humidity, the weather, any defects on the vehicles. You know, if you're putting graphics on a vehicle that's got obvious some rust, a little bit of paint chipping, 5 years from now when they call you to remove that, you know it's going to remove some paint. And they're going to tell you that you need to paint it unless you've got that documentation that says right here, you released me from that 5 years ago when I showed you that.
It's not just about what you have today, but like you said, when you got to remove it in the future and what's going to happen. And I know 3M does a good job with their documentation, their literature and support, as I think, you know, Avery does, and Arlon and Orifel. There's a lot of documents out there, and it's really understanding the true manufacturer and knowing that. So I know most of you guys that go to your websites, you're PDA Master certified, you're 3M certified, you're Avery certified. You have different levels of certification of each organization. And I think what's really great is that PDAA has now gone to a badge system. Instead of being master certified for everything, is now you can focus on installations. And that becomes part of the warranty process too, is the manufacturer might say, well, you know, you had Joe Smith put it on, never heard of him, he doesn't have any certification, so how do we know he did it right? You know, just because he says I did it for 20 years doesn't mean he did it right for 20 years. Where if you have some kind of certifications, and a lot of them are recognized across, like Avery recognizes the PDA certifications to theirs, as I believe that Arlon does in Orifel. And then it's really kind of that process that you guys use in order to protect yourselves as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. One last thing I wanted to, just from my perspective, maybe we can all just do a quick wrap up. Your parting thoughts on warranties. It'd be good maybe for us each to do that. So my parting comment would be, a lot of times when I've been out there, of course, selling and doing a lot of tech services work and tech sales work, most companies, when we talk about warranty, the first thing they say is, you know what? The warranty is really just a supplement to my warranty. So it's, you know, never lean your entire warranty that you give your customer just on the manufacturer because of the other elements, like, is equipment being used properly? Are you specifying the right product for that job? Are you prepping the surface correctly? All of those things. So, you know, I guess my parting comment would be sure that the manufacturer warranty is not the only warranty that you're going to stand on, and be aware of, you know, the responsibility that you, your client, also in preparing the graphics and applying them to specifications. Paul, do you have any last thoughts?
I've got a question. What do we mean by Avery Dennison recognized PDA certification?
Here we go.
Because it is difficult to certify everyone and be everywhere. You know, Avery has a limited class. I think they do maybe 40 or 50 classes. They trust the quality of the certification program of the PDAA. So therefore, if you do become master certified by PDAA, you can contact Avery Dennison, tell them, and they'll put you on their webpage as being Avery Dennison CWI certified as well. And Rich, I'm sorry, I kind of was answering that question in a text. So as far as warranties, I think when you look at it, it really comes down to the installers getting their certifications and then being able to track and follow and knowing the manufacturers and I think when you become certified, you're forced to do that, part of their testing processes. And that you understand what you're getting, what you're offering, and then how you support that. And I think that the certification process really legitimizes and is worth the investment of time and money by any installer.
Thanks for that, Paul. Do you have anything you want to leave with us on warranties? Passing.
Sure. Yeah. First, I just want to jump off subject for a quick session and say certifications are huge especially these manufacturer ones that are coming out, because every material works so differently, and the science behind each one is so different that it's really important to learn the qualities and the drawbacks of each kind. So I've been fortunate to attend an Arlon and an Avery and an Orifol over the last 6 months, and I mean, I learned so much about what makes their product different from each other. So I just want to put it out there. It's very worth the investment of educating yourself in each of the major products that we're seeing in our field. And then as far as warranties go, just be proactive and communicate a lot. You know, I mean, when you've been in the business for a long time as an installer, you'll learn. I mean, I can open up a box of material and know that it wasn't produced properly just by the smell, the look. I mean, I peel it off the paper for a second and watch it curl over on itself and know that, you know, and those are the points that I teach my installers. You know, stop right there and call the producer, well, call our office manager to call the producer of the material to say, look, we know this wasn't produced properly. We're negating our portion of the warranty. Would you like us to continue with the job as is? And you get that in an email. You want that on paper. You want documentation of that, so that when it stuff starts peeling off in a month, it's not your fault and you're not held liable for it.
Right.
And
no, that's great. That's great advice, Ken. Appreciate that. And Jim, we've just got another 30 seconds to go, but if you have some parting thoughts on warranties.
Yeah, I mean, just I think when you're in the business, like Ken said, for a long time, you're going to know what's your fault. So you can look at a wrap, look at a wall, and look at something that didn't do right. Fix it. Just fix it. You know, usually you can fix it. If not, you can repair it or have something reprinted. But just stand behind your work. You know, it'll make you a better company.
Well, that was a really that was a fun discussion on warranties. I think we would say that we did a bit of a deep dive on that. Now let's talk about, you know, the beginning of the sales process. Talking about estimating jobs. This is a really important part of being profitable. It's an important, you know, part of the job as far as being busy about, you know, getting customers in the door, getting this part right. So, you know, I know, of course, Ken and Jim, you guys are on the front lines out there in this panel as far as working on estimating. You would have strategies. You may have software you like to use. And I'm sure that, you know, everyone would love to know how that all works. So either one of you would like to start helping us out with the discussion on, you know, how do you go about estimating? What are the pitfalls? What are the things what are the challenges? What are the things you have to remember?
Yeah, I'll make it short and sweet since I think you've got this one ready. For us, I mean, we do a lot of similar stuff. So we group stuff together. So we have set prices for vehicle wraps. We have set prices for color changes, and it makes it quicker and easier because we have a lot of quotes coming through here, and it takes a lot of time if you have to spend a lot of time with them. So we have 3 people in the office that do it, and then they run into stuff that, you know, sometimes they can't, you know, when it gets into a lot of retail stuff and there's a lot of different elements in the wrap, that's when it gets continuous in the job. You have standoffs, you have brick wall, windows, floor graphics. That's when it gets a little harder to quote. But for us, what we did was we standardized a lot of our pricing and made a lot of our vehicle wraps, put them in groups, and that helped a lot. It sped up a lot of time. It knocked a ton of time off of quoting. Other than that, it's you just got to be in the game for a long time and know how to quote jobs. For me, it's pretty easy because I've done just about everything out there. Like recently, I just underquoted a job. It's pretty. It happens, you know. It just happens, and that's about it. I mean, we try to standardize stuff and make it easy.
So, from your perspective, you're saying it's very instinctive, and you know everyone is just.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, please.
Oh no, I was just saying. Yeah, a lot of it is instinctive, but like I said, we have a process of grouping stuff together so that 80% of the quotes, or maybe 90%, I never have to look at anymore because we have it, you know, we know what this costs and this costs and this square footage price for this type material on this surface. And we check off all the boxes, and then they're easy to quote.
So can I ask you then? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
I'm just saying we just have our own like a process for each individual quoting thing, each type of job we're quoting.
So is that like a spreadsheet type situation? Or like, do you have like just a Word doc, or like, how do you organize that?
Yeah, is there a standardized process?
Yeah, it is. It's like a spreadsheet of vehicles broken into different categories.
I see.
Like a transit, sprinter, like all these are in different groups, and then works its way down. You know, a Volkswagen is going to take as long as a transit, but the square footage is, or maybe even longer. You know, so we have these big groups of vehicles in each group, and it's just quick and easy. You just pull the number off and go. You know, does it have a roof? Does it not have a roof? You know, and then for the walls and windows and floors and stuff, we have breakdowns of quantity versus square foot pricing. So if it's a 200 square foot, or if it's a 45,000 square foot, or a 400,000 square foot, you have different pricing for each one. So we just break it down like that, and it's pretty quick and easy.
Have you seen a shift now with all of this? You know, obviously we're in a different time right now where there's a lot of safety. You know, there are a lot of safety graphics being put on floors and on glass. Have you seen a shift to that type of work, and have you had to make any, you know, addendums to your quoting process based on that?
No, we have not. For us, it's I think we got like hit with a lot of color changes. We do a lot of color change wraps, so that's just getting piled up. I mean, we have like loads of them coming in. And I guess everybody's home. They're all sitting at home thinking, maybe I'll change the color of my car, and now's the time to do it. They're not working. So I don't know what it is, but color change has exploded.
Really?
Yeah, it's insane.
Wow.
So
cool.
one of our biggest things was stadium work and sports events. Like Ken said, a lot of his is stadium stuff, and the sports events, concerts, stuff like that was it. That was our big money makers, and those have all but stopped. You know, they're just done. They're not even advertising it.
True.
So
True.
Those big single jobs are not as happening, but the color changes just really filled the void, and we're back up. So it's worked out pretty good.
So good to hear, Jim.
Yeah.
So Ken, what are your thoughts? You have a bit of a different market that you service, if I understand things correctly. And it was interesting because yesterday or the day before, we were just in conversation. You mentioned buses that are going on right now. So tell us a little bit about the process, and you know, if you've seen any shifts in the last few months in your business.
Yeah, well, us, like Jim, we did spreadsheet everything. You know, when you do as much as we do, or when you're as diverse of an installation company as we are. I mean, we do jobs that have no vinyl. We do a lot of bank refurbishes, just things that don't have any kind of vinyl whatsoever. So we do have square footage pricing. We have hourly pricing. So if my guys are going out to do standoffs, cleat signage, I have to estimate what is it going to take to put up that one cleat signage. So those are all on the spreadsheet as well. If it's a 3x2, it's this much. If it's 4x6, it's this much. And so ours is very standardized as well. The one thing that a lot of installers don't account for, and first of all, when quoting or when requesting for information for these quotes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you can't ask too many questions, right? So a box truck, for example, you know, we have a standard square footage price for a box truck. But if I didn't see a picture of that box truck and see that it has additional doors, one on each side, it has the security bars going up the rear, if I didn't see pictures of that, I wouldn't know to add obstruction charges. That's what we call anything that breaks away from just our standard square footage pricing. So even like wall murals, you know, if a standard wall mural is X amount per square foot, but if I look at a picture, it's a curved wall with 19 fire alarms on it or something, I am going to change the price, or I'm going to add obstruction charges. But as far as shifts over the last few months, We were lucky. We ended up going into the plastic shield business for a while. We were installing a lot of those in banks and retail stores and stuff, sneeze guards. Coming back now that things are reopening up, I haven't seen the only shift I've seen is the large stuff that Jim's talking about. You know, a lot of our business was convention work, and we're not going to see convention work until, you know, maybe a year from now. I don't think. But other things have come along, like getting office buildings ready to reopen with COVID regulations. And so the one thing we had to adapt on that was, you know, it's a million little stickers you're putting all over the place. So you can't charge square footage anymore because you're getting
right.
So now you got to come up with a minimum per piece price, you know, and you got to think, what is it going to take to get this sticker out of the box to the spot on the wall, measured and laid? And so we kind of just went back and forth and played with some numbers, and we thought it would take 10 minutes. We thought it would take 15 minutes. And some clients are good with thinking our 15-minute price is good. Others are pushing back to, oh, it should only take 5 or 10 minutes to do that. But, you know, really it's a new world we live in. So we kind of got to work with our clients. You know, if they have budgets, you know, we want them to succeed. We want them to sell these jobs, and obviously we want the work. So you know, we've just had to roll a little bit different with how we're quoting things these days. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And that's right what I was going for, was to understand in today's time, you know, how have you adapted? And that's really interesting that you've gone to like a time thing as opposed to a square footage thing. 15 minutes now is an increment that means something very different when you monetize it. So that's really interesting. I was going to ask you, both of you, a question about thinking about before COVID. Now let's get outside of vehicles a little bit. Think about, like, Jim, I know you do it. You did do a lot of airport work, and Ken, you do a lot of stadium work, a lot of convention work. I've been in some of those conventions with you, some of those sites with you. So in times past, before COVID, let's call it, I hate saying that, but I guess that's really what it is.
BC.
There you go. No doubt, right? Yeah. 2020 BC. You would probably, a site visit was a very common part of your quoting process, your estimating process. Now, site visits are probably difficult because there's a protocol now in showing up and going and taking measurements, and there's a social distancing protocol possibly, or maybe the security staff is down to one person roaming the halls, and how do you get that person to help you? So I'm just wondering, you know, have either of you seen that you've had to make some shifts in how you estimate based on not being able to make site visits as easy? And whoever would like to take that question, go ahead.
Yeah, site surveys were definitely part of what I wanted to talk about. Basically, caveats. Caveats are important in the estimating process, because you never know what you're going to get into. You never know what you're going to run into. So we have caveats. We have terms of agreements. I'll just flash a real quick thing. I got too many notes here. Terms of agreement. I'm not going to show you the prices or anything, but these are things that just say, look, if the site's not ready when we get there and our installers can't do their job, then we're going to charge you X amount per man per hour of downtime. If our site contact isn't there, waiting for us to, you know, for airports, for example, sometimes we wait for an hour from them to find a security guard to walk us through those things. It says before we will sign off on a PO, they need to sign this document of ours that says they will agree to our terms, and our terms are, we charge X amount per dollar for downtime, we charge X amount for additional labor, trip charges if we get there and we just cannot install and we have to turn around and reschedule. So, you know, caveats are really important in the estimating process, and that's, you know, I think that addresses what you were asking, Ritchie, is that, yeah, if you build that in up front, then, you know, you're not going to have to worry about it on the back end.
So without knowing the detail of whether or not you'll be able to get that job done, and we had a question here in the chat saying, hey, you know, even just getting on an elevator and taking the signs or the graphics up, you know, 35 floors takes whatever time. How do you recover that? By putting that sort of addendum in the beginning saying, listen, anything outside of this, I am going to bill you so much per hour. Customers accept that, and you don't have a lot of blowback at the end when you want to get paid.
Yeah, and that's just about being proactive with the communication up front. You know, we have a job right now. We have a job going on right now in Orlando, which we're not in Orlando. Our closest installers are in Fort Lauderdale, about 3.5 hours away. The company that's producing it is out of Pennsylvania. So they need somebody to be there to receive the materials the day before we're actually starting to install. So of course I had to build the extra day of time, the hotel, and the time that it's going to take to unload these trucks into the beginning of that quote. And they're totally great with it. Those are the things that it doesn't work when all of a sudden you're like, hey, we're unloading a truck that we didn't quote to do. We're going to have to charge it. Nobody wants to hear more money when you're already into the project. You got to be proactive about your expectations up front.
Oh, that's actually really helpful, Ken. Jim, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. The communication up front is huge. You've got to cover your bases. And, you know, for us, as far as going on site surveys and stuff, we still do it. And the only difference is now it's more scheduled. You have to be, you know, you have a time you have to be there. You can't say just I'm going to drop by like before. While I'm out on a job, I'll just drop by. You know, you have to have a schedule. You usually have to have your temperature taking, have your face covering with you, and be prepared to, you know, go through their process. And we're still doing quite a few site surveys. We do a lot, done a lot at the stadiums and stuff, or trying to get prepared for games to maybe start back. But so far, the only difference is it's just more structured for going anywhere, for going into any buildings in downtown Atlanta. You have to be have an appointment to go in.
Yep.
A lot of times you just have to go through the process.
And, you know, something that Pete mentions over here in the chat, and thanks for your comments on that, Pete, is that virtual are a new thing with FaceTime or with Zoom. I assume you could use that as well. And I think that's also a really good tool to use to say, hey, listen, we can't be there. And of course, Ken, if you're receiving graphics, that's a physical thing. But, you know, maybe to do the site visit, there's a cost of saying to the customer, hey, walk me through it, show me. I mean, if I have questions, I'm going to be able to ask you live in front of whatever, you know, the substrate might be. So thank you for that, Pete. I think that's a really good addition as well. So, Paul, you haven't had any, you know, a lot of voice on this, and I certainly don't mean to not include you. You know, you have many years of experience out there, seeing jobs go haywire, seeing jobs go really well, hearing the frustrations of customers. Do you have anything you wanted to add as far as estimating goes?
You know, I think these guys have done a great job of discussing it, and then some of the comments from the attendees are great. It comes down to really making sure that you account for everything, because a lot of people will discount an activity and say, well, I just have to do that anyway. And it's like, but you should get paid for doing it. Whether it's, you know, like you're talking about surface prep. If they don't wash the car before they bring it, and now you have to do a double wash on the car, you know, you should get extra money. So, and that comes back to Ken saying, you know, caveats. Did you bring it in properly? Is it properly prepped? Do you have the right location? Is everything there? So it's really about accounting for all your activities and all the activities of your personnel so that you're not getting shortchanged. Because at the end of the day, you know, no one's in it to just make money to do this one small activity. They're there to do the job and do the job right. That's
a really good point, Paul. You did a really nice 360 for us, because at the beginning we talked about, you know, profitability. It's a big part of the estimating process is to get you profitable, and you're absolutely right. You know, when we would do wrap training, we would always say, you know, we're not in this as a hobby. I'd rather be golfing or sailing or something. So you're absolutely right. Washing a car twice and not getting paid is not cool. So that's a really good point to remember as well.
I think a lot of these classes and trainings that go on are really helpful as you look at estimating and warranties and all these things that we talk about, whether it's boot camp, you know, extended classroom training where they have, and then you get to engage with your peers. And, you know, one of the things I found with installers is they have probably the greatest amount of transparency between each other. And even though they're competitors, they're friendly competitors and they help each other. And there's so many things that you do as installers. You say, hey, why don't you try this? And somebody can do it, and it can change a job from being unprofitable to profitable. And you're probably at a slim margin at that point anyway. But it's really of understanding that there's so much that goes on that you really have to just account for.
So another quick question for all of you. I don't have one to bring to mind. I know, I seem to remember that John Doover was working on something like this. Have any of you ever worked with or heard of people having success using quoting software and really using it? And I would just throw this in there before you answer. Just from my perspective, I would say you have to be religious with them. Like, you have to stay on them. You have to use them all the time and put a certain amount of information of vinyl cost and travel cost and wages that continually change. So there's that element. But have any of you ever used software like this?
Well, I know we looked at John's software, and it's amazing. It's really good for people who print and the full production line. It would cut your time in fractions. You just punch in the numbers. It's got everything there. But for installation, I think it could be used, but I don't know if it's the best for install only, because we have so many different variables that, I mean, it may be in there. I need to talk to John about it, but for a full production shop that prints, they get the vinyl in print, the install, everything, the full works, it's pretty amazing. His software.
So
really
that
nice.
is, yeah, that's a really good endorsement for that. And I've heard similar about it. I guess right now I'm out of that game, so to speak. So, I'm not as involved with that side of the business, but that's really good to hear from you, Jim, on that.
And I think as far as like installation, that you'll develop a nucleus that you can work off of. But like Jim said, and Ken have said, there's so many variables that changes every time. So it's really not that you just punch in these numbers and it automatically tells you what you can charge. I've seen John's stuff. I know they use some other software for estimating and for shop management and things like that. And it's really good because they can do it remotely. They can do it on their cell phones. They can do all the stuff. It's tracking the individuals. And then, like you said, Ritchie, it's keeping it updated, because if you gave your guys 25 cents an hour raise, you have to make sure you put that in there. Otherwise, you're going to lose 25 cents an hour, which doesn't sound like a lot until you start compounding it by, if you have 50 employees and then how many hours, and it just keeps going up and up.
So, Paul, I'm not going to ask you for a raise. That's clear.
Because I won't give you more than 25 cents.
No, your point's well taken, and I appreciate it. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, staying on top of it. All right, so listen, we have a few minutes left.
Point. Ken, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Just in regards to software, because we don't use a lot,
yes.
But for you installers only, like Jim and I, these wrap softwares that give you all the square footage of every vehicle out there, those are worth having. If you're a young installer and you're at the beginning, you don't want to spend $600-700, go to one of your clients, because they're almost all the graphic manufacturers are using them. So when we got started, we just went to one of our big clients and said, hey, we know that the software you use comes with a database that shows all of the square footage of every piece of every car. We'll give you $200 for that list this year. And we did that for a couple of years, and then eventually we said it's worth the $600 just to buy the software. But if you're doing vehicles, it's a great tool to have. It just tells you, I mean, like Jim said, it doesn't have a hood, it doesn't have a roof. Well, that number's right there on that line. You just take that 80 square feet off, and it's good to have. It's a good.
Wow.
It's a good tool.
Yeah, that's it. So, did you want to mention what software that is or not?
Oh, I'm happy to plug it. I like PVO, Professional Vehicle Outlines. I think is that what that stands for? I don't know, because I don't actually use the software except for look at that one spreadsheet.
Yeah, right.
PVO is what we look at. And it's got a really comprehensive breakdown of all the vehicles parts.
And I've noticed in this chat that we're also pro Vehicle Outlines. Yeah, right. And something that somebody else. I remember Pro Vehicle Outlines back when it was just a great way to get the outline of a vehicle so you can make a graphic. But interesting to hear that they've gone further and developed a tool that helps figure out square footage. That's very cool. ArtStation, it looks like, is another one. Okay, so we were also going to talk a little bit about anti-microbial films. So, Paul, did you have something that you wanted to start us off with on that? I will admit it's not something that Arlon has. It's not something I've worked a lot with. I have a very peripheral knowledge of it, and I'm not going to be able to speak as a true professional on it. So,
I mean, I have a rudimentary knowledge about the products. I've been studying it and looking at different things. There's I had worked on a project in the past where I was working with a company for nano coatings and TiO2 and what that does. Antimicrobials are really an agent that kills microorganisms and it stops their growth and their spread. And I know with the COVID-19, there's a lot of concern about, can you use an antimicrobial? Will it help prevent it? Will it help stop it? There's so much conflicting information that antimicrobials can be helpful. There's some films that are antimicrobial. They either have zinc, silver, titanium dioxide, copper in them, or they have a nano texture. There's a company called Sharklet, and they created a textured film that looks like shark skin, but you can't see it, you can't feel it. And what it does, it creates a multi-layered film so that the microorganisms can't multiply past the top of a little plateau. The other items, those metals, what they do is they'll disrupt the reproducing capabilities of the microorganisms. It's really pretty complicated, and it's not as controlled as you would think it would be. A lot of it's controlled by the EPA because a lot of them are pesticides. And I know, Ad Graphics has done some work, and I was looking at a couple different sites of where people have done things, but it's really very specific to the type of microorganism you're after. Hexas has a cast film that you could wrap a car or a train and things, and it has like a list of 6 different microorganisms it can handle. And where do you use these films? You use them on door handles, high traffic areas, touch screens, that type of thing. And typically, a lot of times they'll create a matte finish because they are not transparent products, because you think of silver or copper or titanium dioxide, they're all pigmented or colored, so they will create some kind of hazy effect. And, so it's going to prevent some of the growth. It will help reduce the amount of cleaning. You still have to clean. The CDC says, they don't necessarily stand behind them. They say you still need to practice, good hand washing, cleansing, wearing masks, doing all those things that you had to do anyway. And these might help reduce the amount of cleaning you have to do. It may help reduce the type of disinfectant you're going to use and the strength of it, so that it won't be as deleterious to the human interaction. Some of the cons is, like I said, the CDC says there's little evidence that these coatings prevent spread. And even one major hospital, Kaiser Permanente, they won't even use it in their hospitals. They stopped using them because there's a fear that these antimicrobials might contribute to bacteria that are resistant to any kind of treatments. So they're afraid that if you keep treating things, that now they'll become, like these super strains of viruses that they talk about in bacteria. So, and then it's like, who tests and how do you do this? And how do you verify it? So a lot of companies do their own testing. There are some tests that are out there, like ASTM 2049, ISO tests. So there's different places that can do that. But this is really very rudimentary. It's so introductory. It's really, really complex. And right now, if you look at like some disinfectants, they'll say they'll treat the coronavirus. So people say, oh, it'll get rid of COVID-19. Well, coronavirus just means that's a new virus. So there's SARS, there's MRSA, there's all these different viruses that are out there. And so you have to verify that it's going to attack that one. Pete just sent a message about, is it smoke and mirrors? And I think it's debatable. One guy had said, in my research, said that it could be like lead paint. Back in the day when they put lead into paint, they said, look at how much better the paint works. It lasts forever. But then how many years later do they find out, well, yeah, it lasts forever, but it also kind of causes defects in children and it affects people and poison. So it's kind of an up in the air thing. And I don't think anybody has the answers. It's kind of like the COVID right now. People don't have the answers. It's ever changing, and you just have to kind of try and keep on top of it. And Ken or Jim, have either of you guys used any kind of antibacterial coatings, antimicrobial coatings or films?
We have not had any.
No, we haven't either.
Yeah,
But
and I alluded to that there's some people out there, and you can go online, just type in antimicrobial coatings, antimicrobial films, and you'll get people like Hexas has Pure Zone, which is a cast film. Ad Graphics supplies a coated graphics for their market, for their customers. Frick has antimicrobial films, and then there's a plethora of coatings. There's lots and lots of coatings. There's Ultra Fresh, Castus, Lux, UVC, Omni Shield. So there's all these things that you can apply either secondhand, but you still have to prep first, disinfect, and then you apply these antimicrobials. And the thought process is, because of the silver ions or the copper, that it will help impede the growth of bacteria. I don't know
Right.
if I answered enough, or there's more questions I can answer as best as I can, but it really is a very in-depth discussion.
Well, it sounds like really in our marketplace, it's just greatly unproven, and maybe will make the virus smarter. It's kind of what it sounds like.
Always a possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As they mutate to address the situation, they do that, and
Right.
you can create more harm than good.
You know, at the beginning of the COVID thing, of course, I thought, like I'm sure anyone else who's known about the Sharklet thing, knowing that, you know, that was a FlexCon, you know, endeavor, and of course they're part of our organization. I thought, boy, this is the thing. Why wouldn't we want to lead with this? And I found out very quickly that, yeah, no, nothing was even close to real development.
And they do show it. It's not on FlexCon's website. Sharklet has their own. So I think what happened is FlexCon helped develop the product with Sharklet, and now Sharklet markets a product. And none of these products are cheap. They're very expensive because the way they have to manufacture them and what they expect them to do. Some of them, you know, like the Hexus product says you can do 365 times of cleaning. Some of them say you have to replace it or replace the coating after 9 months, or you have to replace it after 30 days. So again, it becomes, is the value really there? You know, Pete had sent a message of, you know, is it hazardous? That's what they don't really know. And a lot of the silver ions are in the film or in the product, so they're not really migrating out. So and you can go online, look at images, and they'll show it. It shows the bacteria lands on it, and then these ions are there, and they kind of interrupt the formation, the replication, because these are single cell bacteria typically. So it's kind of, and they're weird looking things. It's crazy.
Yeah, I guess it's to stop the colonization, right? Like almost like on the bottom of a boat, you know, we coat the bottom of our boat with that copper stuff. It's just to stop the colonization of the.
Also know that some of those anti-fouling chemicals pollute the ocean and kill fish.
Right.
So, you know, so what is this stuff doing, as people said, you know, to stop this, but to create some other kind of issue.
So true.
I think that's my 10 minutes on antimicrobials. So sorry I don't have more, but I'm sure that could be its own subject with some PhDs and some really smart people doing it.
No doubt. No, Paul, that was excellent. We got a lot of good feedback in the chat.
Yeah, that was great, man.
About your explanation for that, and that's actually a far deeper dive than I think any of us have taken. So I know that must have taken some time on your part as well to research that for us, and we really appreciate that. That was a great explanation. All right, so we've gone through the topics that we were ready to speak about, and if this has been if this has been a really fun get together for everyone, please, you know, leave us comments. Let us know that so that we can continue to do this in the future. Before we close, thank our sponsors, Orifel, Arlon, and Dry Tack. Oh, sorry.
Before you go to the sponsors, because I know they're super valuable and we really appreciate them. But also is rate us on how we did, the information we supplied, and also topics that you might want for the future, because we want to provide what you want to hear about, not just what we want to talk about. Okay, Ritchie, go ahead.
Yep, well, that's an excellent point, Paul. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, so just Orifel, Arlon, and Dry Tack, there are some donations that they gave for giveaway gifts. Ray and Christina will be reaching out to the winners that they will choose in the next few days to get your shipping information and so on. Also wanted to mention that you'll be able to view and share this a recording of this conversation if there's someone that you think, hey, wait a minute, you know, that small dissertation from Paul on antimicrobial, I'd really like to share that with the rest of my company or, you know, group. By all means, this will be up on the PDAA Facebook page in a few days. Just give Ray a couple of days to get that recording up there. So really, in closing, thank you all for spending the evening with us. We appreciate that. And until next time, stay safe.